Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week I'm diving back into the retro territory. Sometime last year, I believe, or either earlier this year, I did the Super Nintendo grab bag. And the way that worked was I just picked a bunch of games that I wasn't really going to do a full review on and just talk about them for a couple of minutes in just rapid fire succession. And I think it went over pretty well. Some unique hits like Search for Eden and Rock and Roll Racing. Other games that I may not have played a lot but I'd heard of, or things that, again, I'm just not going to do a full-on review because it's either not something I was into or it's not big enough to fit its own review. 15, 20 minutes to an hour, It's a wide range, but if I can't find much to say about a thing, then I'm going to leave it to something like this. And this time out, it's going to be the Sega Genesis, because I wasn't just a Super Nintendo kid. Wasn't just a Nintendo kid. Wasn't just a PlayStation kid. I was a Sega Genesis kid as well. And stuff like Sonic, big deal. So those obviously are going to have their own games. I think Phantasy Star, given what I've done Phantasy Star 4 already, but I'm probably going to save the other ones. And maybe some other RPGs, if I get around to them someday, I'll do them. But this is about some games that I'm either going to introduce and then do full playthroughs of, and reviews of, or I know enough that I want to talk about them and just talk about them in quick succession. So, when we're talking about Sega, obviously we start with Sonic. That's the big franchise, and we'll talk about Sonic Spinball, because that was the one that I kind of felt was offbeat. And it wasn't, go stage by stage by stage. It was, hey, Sonic's fast, Pinball's fast, Pinball's crazy, Sonic's crazy. So let's do that. Let's just go nuts with the concept of put Sonic in a Robotnik-led facility, but all he can do is pinball stuff. Bouncing around, hitting stuff, falling in goo, falling in lava, sparks. I hate the sound effect when he does that. Pinball is weird. My parents and I had a pinball machine when we grew up. It was like one of those like card machines, like Ace, King, Queen, Jack sort of thing. It was a really old school pinball machine, but we've always been like big pinball fans. Not really video games, because there's only so much time you can devote to pinball. But like anytime we go to an arcade or whatever, like my mom will sit in front of pinball machines and just play for hours, and they are fun, for what they are. I like what Sonic Spinball is trying to do. It's not going to set the world on fire, admittedly. It's a Sonic spin-off game. It's not meant to have a story. It's just, hey, let's take a concept and go with it. And I think what's cool is it's very colorful, even in the first level, which is Toxic Caves, but they have got blues and light greens and just everything pops off the screen. The music is really good. Something I remember most is the bosses, because a lot of them are makeshift Robotnik bosses in weird forms. There's one that's like a scorpion. The next one is just a bunch of heads in this little vat of things. You just gotta beat the crap out of them. The next one is an actual machine that creates the machine robots from actual like live animals, which is kind of freakish. And then you go into space. And the hardest level is making it up to Robotnik's ship as he's trying to float away and then just beating the shit out of him. So it's like 45 minutes to an hour of just, hey, play a pinball game, play a Sonic game, let's have fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. But once you get down after Sonic, there's still so much stuff that Sega should be known for and is probably known for. And I want to say one of the franchises that they are known for, even though it wasn't one of the first ones, it's one of their better ones. It's Streets of Rage. And I'm obviously going to do like run-throughs of Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Because 4 ended up becoming one of those like retro revival sorts of things where they came back And the guys who I think the guys who made Shredder's Revenge also did Streets of Rage 4, so they've got that legacy going for them. They got 2 great games out of it. Streets of Rage was specifically 1, not so much 2 or 3, but I know 1 was like my beat 'em up game. To end all beat 'em up games. I mean, there are things like Golden Axe and whatnot. There's Altered Beast, which is really old school, but those I didn't like gravitate to. I think Streets of Rage had that down and dirty, gritty, like, and I talked about this with River City Girls, the down and dirty, like, straightforward, these are these times, these people doing, down and dirty things. Like, this is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles era, early 90s. It's like, oh shit, I'm into this. And games like beat 'em ups and platformers were the big deal. So a down and dirty game like this, or like a Final Fight or whatever, and Streets of Rage was the one I gravitated to. It was kind of neat that you got to right off the first game, you get to choose 3 different characters. Your big beefy police officer dude, I think it was Adam. Then there's Axel, I think is the dude who goes Grand Upper. I might get the name wrong, but I was always Blaze. I was always Blaze because she would do judo throws. She's that crazy red outfit, and just striking look, and the whole women can kick the shit out of dudes too. It would set you off at a disadvantage a little bit because she doesn't have as much strength. But I mean, the judo throws are amazing, especially in like later games. So it's like Blaze kind of becoming the de facto second main character is really fucking good. And have I mentioned Grand Upper? Anyway, but yes, Streets of Rage is great. As if you couldn't tell. But though I do feel like in the second and third games, well, mostly 3. In the second game, you sort of kind of get robots and junk, which I can understand. These billion dollar mafia operation needs like security and RoboCop looking shit. But I always felt like 3 kind of jumped the shark a little bit because we bring back Mr. X, but not really, but sort of really, in this laboratory. It doesn't, I don't know. People who've played the third one will know, and probably because it's a beat 'em up, you can kind of, it's almost like Castlevania. It's like, the weird shit is weird shit because it's weird shit. Let's just play the game. But I did feel like going back through old school games, and I was just like, it's kind of weird, which lends itself to another game I'm going to talk about. A game where weird robots and dead things and undead brains and whatever would work. Mutant League. And, of course, the big one was Mutant League Football, but I liked Mutant League Hockey as well. It wasn't as polished, but it still had some good things to it. But Mutant League Football, this was coming in at a time where, like, Madden football was making its hay. It would end up becoming the biggest fucking deal on the planet. I would just fucking play, like, either a college football game. I don't know why I would always be Hawaii for some reason, but I remember playing an NCAA football game and always picking Hawaii for some reason. I don't know. It's just the idea of their outfits and the Hawaii has a football team. Cool. Must be awesome. They were all right. But Mutant League Football is everything I wanted in depraved cartoons and disgusting things when I was I was probably 8, 9, 10. Like, I was growing into that shit. But Mutant League Football is just, hey, throw football, run football, kill dudes. You see a mine, run them into it. Don't run yourself into it. Get vaporized, you dead. You want to kill the ref, he's dead. You want to bribe the ref, he causes penalties. You kill enough dudes on the other side, they can't continue. It's like, what more can you do than that? Then you have the dudes whenever they're talking for like 5 seconds. Mutant League Hockey doesn't have near as much like going for it, but it'll still have some crazy stuff to it. I think my thing with Mutant League Hockey, though, was the demon net. So if you wanted to, you just have this like giant goblin head or whatever the fuck it was rise out of the thing, and like 90% to 95% of pucks thrown at it would just not run through. But if you did manage to get through it, it would explode. I'm a simple man who loves simple things. So I know they brought Mutant League back. I did not check that one out though. I'm curious how that went. But I know the old school games were fun because that's what that old school era was. It was just fun. Next is another franchise that I had tons of fun with, Road Rash. And again, another thing they had a couple of games here and there growing up. I mean, remember distinctly the PlayStation version had like Sugar Ray's Mean Machine on it, and plus some other like retro punk stuff in the mid 90s. Like, they didn't have enough songs, but they had enough. You know, you could pick like your gangs and stuff, but in the old school Genesis, you still had some fun things you could do. It was a traditional racing game on motorcycles, but the difference is you get to punch people, you get to kick people, you get to run them into trees and cars and police officers. And if you get enough money, you get better bikes in later ones. You get to pick better bikes and whatnot and do all that stuff. But the cool thing is, like, you can pick up say if a dude's beating you with a baseball bat, hit the button at the right time, you can catch the baseball bat and it's yours. You get a chain, get a I don't think you get stuff like bladed weapons, but that would be so freaking nuts though. Just like, I have a sword, I stab your bike, I stab you, you're done, race is over, you know. I wasn't the best at like Road Rash, but just the fun of, hey, I get to beat up dudes on a motorcycle. Like, what's not to like about that? So they had like 3 games for the Genesis, and again, they would keep kind of filtering them in later on because it was a popular franchise back in the day. They've kind of brought the concept back here and there for other games, and maybe even Road Rash itself as a revival. But man, just something about those old ones, those 3 to 4 early Road Rash games was just lovely. Another lovely one that I've actually done on my channel was Toe Jam and Earl. And this was pure 90s schlock, but I loved it because it had a unique premise. These aliens fall from Funkotron, and they got to scour 25 levels to find 10 pieces. And in my playthrough, I couldn't find pieces to save my fucking life. I kept getting run over because you get free presents on the ground, and they could be rocket skates, they could be wings, they could be tomatoes, they could be tomato cannons, they could be tomato rain falling from the sky and messing you up. You could accidentally kill yourself, which is a total bummer. So many different cool weird things while you're walking around. It's just walk around, avoid enemies like this dude in a freaking ice cream truck trying to run you over, a dude with a shopping cart, a lady, there's a dude in a carrot costume who will reveal some of your stuff. You can get a telephone and it opens up some of the map. You open up elevators to get to the next floor. The perils of the game though end up when you're fighting the boogeyman, the oogie boogie boogie boogie. I kept getting fucking destroyed by those guys, and then the mailbox dudes. You could see them coming a mile away, and it doesn't freaking matter if the game wants to. It will fuck you up, and that's what happened in my playthrough. I played it, for a few episodes in between the main RPGs, and I still had fun with it. I know that they did like another platformer. I think they did Back in the Groove, which is another pseudo sequel / revival of the old. Because again, if you're gonna do a concept, you're gonna do something different, and going around and beating up random weird things with these guys that look like jelly, or this big like Patrick looking dude, it's just different. It wasn't a platformer, it wasn't a fighting game, it was a chill, like, just kill half an hour to an hour looking for stuff. And it would always be procedurally generated, so it wouldn't be the same game every time unless you wanted it to do, the fixed playthrough. But it's something that still holds a place for me because it was like, it's not the favorite game. I would always go for like Sonic and, Streets of Rage, but, Toe Jam and Earl is still one of those ones that I was like, yeah, this is cool. Speaking of cool, and this one's hard, was Kid Chameleon. This game franchise hurt. And I don't know if they made a franchise of it. They should have. I misspoke. They should have made more. Because in the world of isekai anime, it's like this was like 30 years ahead of its time. It's like a dude transports into a virtual reality machine, and becomes a character in a video game against these dudes that have like multiple heads. Like you bounce on their heads, their eyes pop out, and they go, they just have these like skewers in their heads. It's really freaking creepy. Every time a Kid Chameleon dies, the narrator goes, "Die!" and butter and shit like that. So they had like little sound clips and things. But one of the cool things is that it was unique in the sense that they had like 5 or 10 different level setups. And, forests, mountains, trees, city levels where you bounce around things. Some of the later levels, you have these rubber balls that you'd have to jump on, and they would be over death pits. And there's like 1 or 2 that had this like crazy ass fucking death wall, where you have to run. I spoke about this in River City Girls. This was what I was talking about. The death wall. You're trying to run up and try to avoid it before you get caught, in an auto scroller. And it was just, oh God, I remember it. But Chameleon would have like tons of abilities. He would have the knight. He would have, he could climb a wall. He'd have a samurai. We can do like a down stab or a stab thing. He'd have an axe. He'd throw axes while you wear a Jason mask. I think one of the coolest ones was, oh God, what was it? I think it was a living tank where you shoot like skulls out of a tank. There was a dude who would like be like a surfboarder, like Marty McFly in Back to the Future 2, where it's like a hoverboard and you could hover through an entire level and then like zero gravity up to another part. There's like 10 or 12 different skills, and it never gets old. Because you'd always have like weird little pathways. You'd always have these like, you didn't have to go in sequential order. There was like 20 or 30 levels. I want to say the game said there were more, but I always thought there was like 30 or 40 levels in. But there would always be these teleporters. And you could take a teleporter to a different room and be far flung into a place that like in a playthrough. I don't remember this fucking level. I don't remember this sky castle anywhere. I don't remember because I'd remember these temples sometimes, and then I wouldn't remember it the next playthrough because we'd be like, how the fuck did this happen? What order am I in? Because you start the first 3 or 4 levels and then you're like, okay, now I'm going into a different place. Because you could always kind of weave in and weave out and do different orders and different things, and then you get to the bosses. And it would provide a different experience every time. Next up, so we did Spinball. So what is next? Okay, I talked a little bit about Altered Beast and Golden Axe. Kind of just, Golden Axe was big deal. Altered Beast was like the original game. But I mean, again, some of these are like arcade ports to the Genesis or to the to the old school Master. I think it was Master System and Genesis were together, and then fucking whatever. I'm doing Genesis, but anyway, some of these are going to be arcade ports. Like Insector X was one. I think Insector X was like the second game I ever had other than Sonic, which is weird because I don't think anybody ever talks about it anymore. Because Altered Beast was the one that came with the Genesis, as was Sonic. I think Altered Beast came later because it was in the older Sega console, but Sonic was always bundled in. That's why everybody got Sonic. But I got like Insector X, and I remember thinking it was like, because you think these games take forever. And no, that game takes like 20 or 30 minutes. It's just hard because it was a shmup. It was like, think of a Bug's Life or Ants, where everything is fucking small and microscopic, and you're just this insect that's flying around trying to kill things. It looks a lot different than the Genesis. It's a lot more gritty and kind of disturbing. I think the arcade version is a lot more heroic and superhero-esque. Don't quote me on it, but it's just going through like 5 or 6 different levels, killing different types of monsters and killing the things. There's not a lot to it, but for some reason I always played it though, because it's like, it's not like always like the games, the games that everybody talks about it. Sometimes there's a game that just hits you and you're always like, I remember this one. I remember this one fondly. Did it have a lot of meat to its bones? No, but for some reason I kept playing it. Maybe it's because it was like the one shmup I was actually kind of okay at because I would never play shmups or, Star Fox or things like that. So I'd never be into those kinds of games. But this one, for some reason, grabbed me. Then, of course, Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat was everywhere. Because you had Street Fighter, you had Mortal Kombat. If I had to say which one I was Mortal Kombat. I mean, I like Street Fighter every once in a while, but it wasn't my thing. But it just wasn't, Mortal Kombat had blood. Mortal Kombat had blood. It had ninjas. It had crazy alien dudes from other dimensions. It had Shang Tsung. It was like, your soul is mine. Not like even before that, like the fucking movie. I have to review that movie at some point because I don't care what anybody says about like the Mario movie, Sonic. They're good. They're great. That first Mortal Kombat movie was the fucking best, and I need to do that again. But I wouldn't have gotten into that if I hadn't known about Mortal Kombat and look at all the blood and, doing the splits and punching a dude in the nuts with Johnny Cage and doing uppercuts over the stage and seeing them fall into the pit of spikes, shit like that. All the fatalities, which I could never seem to do because I was dumb, just stuff. But then you'd have games like Killer Instinct, which was more of a Super Nintendo game, but you play as freaking Orchid, and her special move is getting her tits out, and people get heart attacks. It's like, what the fuck? Or Eternal Champions, which I remember distinctly because you have multiple people from different time periods. Ancient medieval times. You've got ninjas. You've got cybernetic dudes. You've got all these things. You get a gangster. You get a freaking 1920s gangster in that freaking game. It's fucking cool. He does like a rope swing kind of thing or a chain swing, and he's just a cat burglar in a fighting thing. Like, who came up with that idea? I like it. Gangsters are interesting. I was about to say cool. I'm like, don't be a gangster, kids. Don't be criminals. But no, those old school gangsters, like, they're never in these freaking games. I mean, you get mafia dudes every once in a while, but they're always like karate dudes. You don't get the down and dirty, kill you, see? That sort of Al Capone kind of thing. That's what I'm talking about. Shit like that. They also had their own like special death animations. You'd go into this one level with these like neon signs in a building. You throw them into the neon sign and they explode into sparks. One is like there's a witch burning, and then when you kill the dude, he falls into the witch burning, and just it's so good. Primal Rage I don't know as much about. It just felt a little stiff to me, but Primal Rage is set in prehistoric periods. You get to fight as fucking dinosaurs and apes, and did I mention dinosaurs? Because I might have mentioned dinosaurs. So I wasn't like as into Primal Rage, but I know that was a thing for a while. But Mortal Kombat was king. Not gonna lie. I'm not into fighting games, but I know my way around a few if I can bother. But now we're getting into some really deep cuts. This one was more of an arcade thing, and I remember thinking this game was long. I'm an idiot. Because you don't have that concept as a kid. Speaking of kids, Atomic Robo Kid. Again, this was an arcade port. I can definitely tell when I was watching footage back on YouTube, I was like, this game is short. This game is very, very, very fucking short. It's like 20 minutes to beat it. But for some reason, I remember as a kid, you would play these games thinking they would last forever. And it would take 20 minutes or 30 minutes to beat. But they're hard. They're meant to be hard. And that one, I think it was like 20 minutes if you don't get hit at all, like ever. But you have all these missiles and like weird, crazy shit. You fight these things called governors, which are basically just aliens with giant eyeballs. It's ugly. The game's ugly. But it gets you in that kind of like alien mentality, like everything is an alien and, it's trying to kill you and you're the only one, like you're a small ass fucking Wall-E looking robot and you're just like, I'm trying to survive and I'm going to kill these guys and I'm going to do it. And he'd actually have like some not voice lines, but some, like some text dialogue. He's actually kind of a fucking scamp, it's like, This is fucking dumb. I'll kill him. I don't fucking care. You know, because he's talking to some leaders, and he's just like, all right, fine, I'll fucking kill him. So he'd have some freaking heft to him for being such a small ass robotic thing. But that was a game I remember. This one I mostly remember playing it and never finishing, because you probably know which level I'm talking about. Is Shinobi 3. I didn't play Shinobi or Ninja Gaiden or any of those games, but Shinobi 3 was the one I did. And obviously they're different franchises doing different things. Shinobi's a little more hectic and chaotic and less about, hey, we're going to kick your ass, we're going to kill you. Shinobi's more about running and gunning and just stabbing or sending electric shocks or, you know, shurikens at things' faces and killing. Shinobi 3 was cool because it did a lot of unique things with the concept, where you're not just a ninja. You're not just fighting ninjas and samurais. You're fighting weird biological experiments. There's like a level where you go inside a fucking like a diseased, putrefied freaking flesh monster, like Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs. It was fucking gross. Like you keep hitting it, and it would keep doing with his face, and it would keep getting like darker and bluer and bluer and bluer, and then it would just another level you ride a horse, another level you ride a surfboard, because that's what ninjas totally do. But you know, go amongst caves and caverns and water electric plants and do you didn't know what level they were gonna do. You know, the bio living weapon, you know, body weapon. I think that's what they called it. That stage going into that dude's body. It was fucking weird. And he would look at you. It's not bad enough he was made of fucking meat. He would look at you throughout the stage and try and kill you. But there's another stage that I totally remember, which sucks. And it was, I think it was like traps or platforms or something. It was like later on, you're in this cliff and you're going to fight a boss at this freaking bird. But enemies and yourself are falling on these like cliff, you know, rocks, and they're just falling. And this is just giant fucking death pit. So you got to make perfect precision jumps and avoid dying and, you know, avoid dying. You know, and I could never get my head around it. I mean, it wasn't the hardest thing, but I'm scared of fucking death pits. So you're telling me a level like that exists, which is all just slow-moving rock death pits? It puts the fear of God into me. Go back to the living weapon, dude. And then, you know, trying to climb into the main ninja's lair, and you're climbing on these, like, support beams of this helicopter or this aircraft carrier or something, and then if you fall, you die. You know, I'm just like, dude, lighten up. And again, is it as hard as something like Ninja Gaiden? No. But I'm like, you know, it has its moments. But it is a frenetic paced game. The main ninja can kind of do a ton of cool stuff, like I said, so it's not like lacking in substance. I mean, I just watched a thing on Now in the 90s where they were like, they put this thing in development hell and made it even better and made it even more fun and made it less difficult. I'm like, good on you, because I can't handle a Ninja Gaiden game to save my life. So I want to play as a ninja. I'll play as a Ninja Turtle, or I'll play as something like this. So it was kind of neat. Should be finishing. Echo the Dolphin. Oh, goody. Where do I start with this? I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what you're supposed to do with this game. It's go through a level, find some stuff to knock into some things, to knock into some crystals, to keep going, and you're running out of oxygen because you're a dolphin. But you're fighting these aliens later on, and this alien looks like a fucking... He looks like Phantoon from Super Metroid, except worse. He looks like a fucking just gigantic alien head. And it's like, what do you have to do with dolphins? Why are you having me platform? Why are you having me go and find other dolphins? Don't ask me. I couldn't get my head around this game if I tried. Because I'm not like, something you could probably guess is I'm not one for subtlety and exploration and figuring out where to go. I like stabbing. And I like knowing what the fucking... Oh, there's a dude. Kill it. You're telling me I gotta slowly creep through this octopus? Ah, fuck, he smacked me. And I gotta go back. You know, just stuff like that. I've heard the second game's better. But I was focusing mostly on the first one. But goddamn, it looks so difficult. And I think the guy made it intentionally difficult. Because again, it's like an hour-long game, right? You're trying to make the most out of that rental that you've got. But it's still just like... platforming is just nuts. Getting to the end here. Cyborg Justice. This is one I remember fondly, and when I looked at it back, I was like, the thing I remember most about it is still awesome, but everything else kind of meh. Cyborg Justice was a game about cyborgs beating up other cyborgs and going into an alien ship, I think. What I remember most was the fighting style. Because you punch dudes, you smack them, and you rip their arms off. And the sound when you rip their head, like, you ever do that popping noise with your mouth? It's just like this weird popping sound. I don't know if it came across in the microphone. It was pretty quiet. It's just this visceral popping noise. Just pop off their arm, and sometimes they'll pop off your arm, and you can replace it with their arm, and you can keep beating the shit out of them. And then if you beat them fast enough, you pop off their entire head. That's it. I don't need anything else. This game's got me. Pop off their arm, pop off their head. That's fine with me. That being said, there's not a lot of variety. And a lot of the levels are just palette-swapped colors, which is kind of frustrating. It's the same backdrop, just with a different color scheme. And the backdrops kind of suck, because they're just weird shapes of a ship. They're not even colored in very well. It's just, here's the purple level. Here's the green level. Here's the red level. There you go. But did I mention you can pop off their heads? You can... And they just pop off. You just rip their heads off. Or you... Did I mention ripping their heads off? Because that's cool. So it's funny for a laugh. And then, to finish up, this is one that more my brother played, but I still remember watching him do it. And when I tried to do it myself, I'd struggle. Was Desert Strike. And Desert Strike was non-linear, though they want you to go in linear succession mostly. But you have this Apache helicopter thing, and you're going into a gulf, and you're just shooting stuff, and you're saving stuff, and you're shooting stuff, and you're saving stuff, and you run out of like fuel, you can run out of resources. So you have a set of like 4 or 5 main missions that you go to get rid of this Saddam Hussein sounding guy. That's what the criticism was at the time, was they were trying to, just like WrestleMania 7, they were trying to fool some of the Gulf War. But I think, I don't know, it's that time period. It's not meant to be a satire. They don't really do satire until like the third game, with media moguls being the mean dudes. I did see, like, with Urban Strike, they started having more, even in the second game, Jungle Strike, they started having more like character moments. Like, the main dude is kind of this guy trying to go on vacation and is like, no, we need you. You saved our lives. Can you save us again? Sure. And then they would do this like spycraft kind of thing in the third game with the media mogul dude, this Donald Trump kind of guy that's trying to be a politician, whatever, and, he would just find out people trying to screw him over and shoot them. And, so the games would get better and better and better. But that initial like isometric, you're shooting dudes, you're shooting buildings, you're doing this, that stuff always kind of stayed the same for those 3 games. And especially Desert Strike, because for how basic of a setup that was, isometric games were not new, but having the idea that you're this helicopter and you're just shooting shit and blowing stuff up is cathartic in a way. Even without the military element. If you take the military element out of it, it's you know, it's missing something. But again, I understand if people were like, but as far as a game goes, like, it gives you a little bit of a strategy because you have to keep constantly refueling and recharging your weapons and, you know, not shooting your own dudes by mistake, which I'm pretty sure I've done at some point. You know, so Desert Strike is certainly one that I think was a big deal. I mean, of these games, like, Streets of Rage was big. Mortal Kombat was big. Sonic, of course, was big. Desert Strike, I think, was good too. But there was still some here that were like, I don't remember why I played them. I just rented them and had fun because that's what we would do back then. And I think it translates to now sometimes. You just want to watch something you don't understand, and even if it's not something everybody else plays, if you enjoy it, then that's what matters, right? And some of these, like I said, not very substantial experiences, but for some reason resonated with me. And maybe they resonated with you. Again, this was just kind of off the cuff, random, just like this SNES thing. I had a few things in mind I wanted to talk about and see what I wanted to go at. I might do a PlayStation or PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3 and 4 one, but those are starting to get into the territory where I'm finally into the RPG era, and that's what I'm doing. So I may or may not do a PlayStation one. It would depend. But of the rest of them, it would definitely be PlayStation. But maybe someday. But I wanted to get to this one because this was also fun. But that'll do. And I have a lot of topics to cover over the next couple of months. And I've finally gotten back to knowing what they're going to be, so I have some time for more prep. But next week is going to be a Lull in the Sea. This one was kind of a hidden gem for me, much like Yamato, where I don't think people are talking about it anymore, but the people who do really enjoy it. And I didn't think anything of it for the first episode or two, and then it slowly started to kind of sneak into me. It's like, oh god, this setup is kind of neat. These characters are kind of neat. I want to see where this goes. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, fuck. It ended up becoming like a top 10 or top 15 anime for me. And I watch a lot of anime, if you couldn't tell. So for something like this to be just a very basic kind of slice of life meets, you know, romance drama meets like crazy, it's the aesthetics and the music, I think. That's what said it. But I'm going to talk about that next week. After that, it's going to be Kingdom Hearts. It's already been recorded. So again, that's the LeighClipse version, the LeighClipse interview. So I've already done Kingdom Hearts 1. We do it again in October, since we finished the playthrough earlier, I believe, this month. Or earlier last month, excuse me. Dragon Quest XI. Probably by the time I record that, I'm not going to be finished with the game. But I have played it. I know what I'm doing. So consider it kind of a spoilerific review. For those who are not done with the series. I might or might not be done, because that technically is going to be into October. So I'm probably going to be near the end or midway through Act 2 by the time that actually airs. But as far as recording it, it'll probably be while I'm in Act 2. Ancient Magus Bride, the day before my birthday. Hooray! Ancient Magus Bride, speaking of things that are amazing and subtle and amazing, and I want more of it, and I'm getting more of it, and I got the, a recent season, with a school setup, which is kind of neat, because there's so much you could do with the magical concept and these weird, fey creatures and, fairy tale things, but it also kind of be down to earth about Chisei, because she's kind of this alluring presence, not in the sensual way. She just has this like story arc that is just gripping. That's the word I was going for. Not alluring. I was saying gripping, I would say, is where shit keeps happening to her because everybody wants to, take hold of her powers. And, she doesn't even understand them. But this guy helps her. And I say guy in quotes because if you've seen that show, you know who Elias is. And I'm so enthralled by it. Going into Halloween, it'll be anime again. And I'm going deep into the freaking archives with this one. Witch Hunter Robin was one of those Adult Swim shows way, way back. And again, I'm saying this way back, as in that's when I started watching shows. Back in like 2000, 2002, 2003 era, maybe even a little later, but still, it's like that, for me, is when I started watching. And it doesn't feel like it because anime's been around forever, but, you know, when anime started hitting big, this was kind of that era, you know. And then after that, because it tied with Dragon Quest XI, Metal Gear Solid 2, which will be perfect timing because that game will come out when the Master Collection comes out. For those unfamiliar, they are re-releasing ports of Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3. Some that were in the PS2, I think PS2 and PS3 or Xbox 360 versions of the HD collection. I don't know how good a quality they are. I know the Switch version, people have said, is kind of but maybe that was a trial build, so we won't know until October, because that's when that's coming out. But Metal Gear is one of those franchises that I just loved. I didn't always love it, you know, because it has its moments of Hideo Kojima. But you gotta go with the Hideo Kojima or you just never know. Which is gonna scare me because I didn't touch Death Stranding. And I'm scared if I want to do that or not, because of the things I've heard about it. But hey, who knows? Hideo Kojima is strange, and he creates some strange games. But Metal Gear Solid, it's a lovely time if you can get into it. But that's how much stuff I've got coming up. But for now, I will call it an episode, and I will see you guys next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.